If you like this podcast, share it with your friends. You can follow us on social media either on Facebook or on Twitter at cleverramblings. If you have any feedback or comments, please mail us at cleverramblings@gmail.com or visit our website cleverramblings.weebly.com. As always, we really appreciate you listening, and now enjoy today's podcast.
Hello, this is the Clever Ramblings podcast. My name is Ivan.
And I'm Moritz.
And today we will talk about 3 interesting topics, maybe get a little controversial. First, we will talk about whether or not the world is becoming a better place, given, I guess, a historical argument. Then we will shift and talk about the morality or immorality of prostitution, and what our thoughts are on it. And then we will finish the podcast by talking about relationships and whether a relationship is, whether romantic or non-romantic, is just simply a contract. And so without further ado, we'll start with the first topic. So the world being a better place. So there's been, and I've even spoken about it with other people who think that the world is becoming a better place. So, for example, you can even think, Steven Pinker is a psychologist from Harvard. He wrote a book called The Better Angels of Our Nature. It's a very, very, very long book. I did not fucking read it. So, but we'll send a link there anyway.
Of course.
But I did listen to a lecture that he gave, and he gave a series of other lectures that basically he looked at data of homicide and violence, and showed that that's been decreasing, as just over the years. And also for example, treatments of diseases have gotten better. Violence overall has seemed, at least in developed nations, has seemed to decreased a lot and declined. There's been, more technology, so we're able to do more things. I mean, you could argue that technology is also kind of a bad thing in a certain sense, but in general, technology is a good thing. We have access to the internet and more information, and people are able to travel is easier, right? We're a more global world, which again, people would also argue could be a bad thing, but it's very easy to find out what's going on from different places of the world, and we're more connected, at least through the internet and social media than ever before. And so a lot of things seem to be progressing, even if you think about the way LGBT plus is sort of had more acceptance, right? There's definitely homophobic slurs or people who have homophobic views are more shunned, and they're not, it's not tolerated nearly as much as it used to be. Also with things like racism, right? You had Black Lives Matter, and you have more people talking about race, especially, with, the United States election. But that's a whole nother story. You also have the Me Too movement and fighting against sexual assault and sexual harassment. So you have all these kind of movements that seem to be, despite, you can argue that there are flaws in each movement and even all of the statistics. For example, when Pinker looked at homicide, I mean, that's not the only way to measure violence, right? If you just died, that's not necessarily what if I slapped you in the face? Right? That's if what if the amount of slaps to the face went up a lot? That still sucks, right? I don't think it's slapped in the face more often than I did when 20 years ago. But and
we
you
should
could
make
argue
that statistic. The slap statistic. How many people got slapped back 20 years ago
Man,
compared to now?
This data. Someone needs to take this data.
You need to take this data, and then we're gonna construct this and make a paper where we just talk about that. Is the world becoming a better place dependent on the slap statistic?
And the amount of ass whoopings that get handed out.
Imagine
these things matter, right?
we walking around and knocking on doors and asking people, so how many ass whoopings did you give to your children this week?
Yeah,
And count that up, we compare it in like another year and see how that changed. There are like significant differences.
Right, these things are important.
These are the important things. Who cares about climate change and shit? See how many ass whoopings are handed out every day.
So you could argue that there are somewhat like arguments that against sort of the things that I've said of why we're progressing, but in general, it looks like the trend is positive, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say, M, is do you feel that the world is in all becoming a better place?
I think that's such a hard question to answer, just because
that's why we're here, Em, to answer the hard questions.
Let me make my point. So so basically, obviously, we are better off than like compared to like 500 years or like 600 years ago, or even like make it only 80 years ago. So it's almost 80 years ago when World War II started. Obviously, we're better off by now. Who wants to get bombed or who wants to die from like virus infection or bacterial infection because you don't have any vaccines, you don't have antibiotics, all that shit. And with technology and progression of science, of course, I think the world is a better place than it used to be. And I think that's just like a normal and natural progression, even though people make it out to be like it used to be, everything used to be so much better back in the day. Which is obviously not true. Because if you look back in the day, it was shit all the time. What did you do? You didn't do anything. You just worked, then came home, eat, sleep, work. And that's all the thing you did back like in 200 years ago. Or like even 500 years ago, almost whole of Europe got wiped out because of one fucking disease, which could now be easily prevented by giving antibiotics. So obviously there are things that show that the world is becoming a better place, even if some people say it's not and everything was better. But is it the best world we could have? No. I think that's like the most like critical point. Is the world becoming a better place? Yeah, it is. But is it as good as we could make it? No. I think that is what I think about that is there are so many still fucked up things. Like you mentioned, the LGBT and homophobic and all this stuff. Yeah, in some country it is, but in other countries it's not. In Russia, it's like you got thrown into jail. In Saudi Arabia, you get beheaded and all this shit for like being gay. And so I think like yeah, especially in like the Western country that we get more like aware of such social issues. But in other countries, it's still fucked up, and they're like acting like they're still in the Middle Ages. And also with the amount of wealth we have nowadays, from the world getting a better place, from technology advancing and new resources and all the science we did, the money is not equally contributed, and it could be so many people we would be so much better off if we would contribute this wealth to like more people, make like the rich guy pay more taxes and be more responsible in what they do. So I think we could be in a way better place nowadays. But just on the question, did the world become a better place? Yeah, it did. And I think that's obvious. Like nobody, I don't know how you can argue that 70 years ago everything was better. Maybe you felt more comfortable, but when you actually start thinking about it, what you have nowadays and what you take for granted that you didn't have like 50, 60 years back ago, I think it's plain obvious that the world is becoming a better place, but we could be way, way better. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I feel is, for me, I'm like always conflicted on this issue, because I say on one instance, like yeah, exactly like what you're saying, is that we're definitely not in the Middle Ages, and we definitely can prevent or at least contain a lot of diseases and illnesses a lot better. But what factors sort of into my thought as to why I'm not necessarily sure that the world is becoming a better place, is kind of like really two main things. And one is that the problems that we had, like the problems that we faced back then, like so, except for disease, right? Because disease could easily wipe out the whole entire human species, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, most conflicts, like, say, if you had a war like 500 years ago or even 100 years ago, I mean, minus, like nuclear bombs and stuff like that. But if you had a war maybe 100 years ago, you wouldn't have the risk of basically wiping out the entire human population. Right? That's changed now.
But then that's more like, is the world becoming a riskier place? Not like, is it becoming a better place? It's more like, the question is.
Yeah, but I think part of being better is also part of like how, like, your peace of mind. Right? Like that's sort of an aspect of what we would judge it on, right? Because say for example, if we lived in a world where it was constant panic, right? And we didn't know whether, bombs were going to be shot off at this point, that's not necessarily a better world because everyone has huge fucking anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm saying is like the problems we have, like climate change, nuclear stuff and people, I mean, you never know, someone could be developing, like we have threats of someone developing like a bioweapon, right? Or there's also the disease thing. There's also, the fact that, even though there's been a lot of progression in things such as, race and other, prejudices, like you could think somewhat calling them out is sort of driven some of them more and more underneath, right? So for example, if I call out people who are racist and if there's a social responsibility for you being a racist, right? Like losing your job or something like that, that doesn't mean you're necessarily not going to be racist. You'll just not show that you're racist.
Yeah.
And then you'll influence policies, which of course we don't know because we don't necessarily keep up with every policy that's passed. Right, that then are still racist policies, right? So some of these problems and some of these oppressors have been driven more into the more covert sort of underground, right? But they're still powerful people. Look at the people who are in power, right? The people in power, like Hollywood or whatever like that, are still sexist and still racist, or in the governments are still sexist and still racist. Like you still, like the people in power haven't necessarily, their makeup hasn't changed that much, right? Whereas,
yeah, you have to see how much. Like, I know what you mean, but even looking back, they may have not progressed that much that we did in other regards, like the general public, that now gay marriage is okay or something like that. But I think also in like the powerful people, they also changed. They may not have changed that much, but looking back, if you like 50 years when like the politicians were so conservative that they probably say like black people have to go to other bathrooms than white people. That was like way more racist than now saying like I don't want black people to have like the same opportunity as white people because I think they are not as good as white people. I think like somebody who really campaigns on like segregation again, he's really, really bad. Then there's the person that says racist stuff, but it's not as racist as before. It's still really, really bad. We have this little progression. So I think
the United States elected Donald Trump, bro.
Yeah, I know, and he's
so for me, and that was in 2016, V.
Yeah.
Like, so, and this motherfucker obviously was kind of already, you know what I mean? Like, he displayed, like, there was people, like, saying he was tied to this and tied to this and tied to that. Like, so what I'm trying to say is, like, and even in other places in Europe, you've seen these big influences of conservative ideas, or not conservative, because I'm not trying to demonize conservative thinking people. Like, sometimes it's good to be conservative, right? But you've seen these, like, sort of, some of these ideas, which just tend to be more conservative, of just kind of reverting us back a few steps. So like, you have the election of Trump, then you have Brexit first, then you had the election of Trump. Then you have like even I've heard of some like even European elections have been like really y'all have elected this person, and so what I'm saying is like, and you have like immigration problems and things like that, and how people view immigrants and stuff like that. So I'm saying like have like in some ways we progress, and in some ways we're also going back, but just in a different way, right? And so I don't necessarily know how much is improving. I'm definitely not as scared. I would be more frightened to walk in the United States in the early 20th century, or even the 60s, even when we were granted, civil, because it was still bad once we were granted civil rights. Like I would fear for my life much more then than I do now, right? I mean, there is police brutality, but generally when I'm walking down the street, I'm not going to be as afraid. It's only when they start coming up to talk to me, right? But in those times, you're just afraid just with white people in general, because you don't fucking know what's going to happen, right? So in those ways, things have gotten better, right? But also so my other point was not only that we have problems that are now affecting everyone, right? Where there's climate change, where there's a threat of nuclear war, whether it's bioweapons, whether it's just this tribalism where everyone wants to be part of this, is part the whole sort of tribalism versus globalism argument, which it seems that we're becoming more, and I think a psychologist has done this work, but I don't really remember who it is, but that we are kind of becoming even more segregated in a certain way. Like, for example, if you just look at liberals versus conservatives, right, and how their attitudes towards the other opposing party has changed, right? People who are liberals and people who are conservative are much more hostile and distrusting of the opposing party now, more than they ever were, right? So say in the 80s, okay, maybe you weren't Republican, you were liberal, and okay, you didn't necessarily like Republicans, but you didn't think, I can't even live next to these people, or I can't even. Right now it's I don't even send my children to the same schools. It's all this and that doesn't help, because you need somewhat of ideas to transfer, right? But my second point was also why I'm not so sure is because we have the internet. We have so much access to information, and yet people still, simple facts, people still won't accept them, right? Or even try to accept them. And then you also have people that use the internet. That to me, this is the most fucked up thing about also the world itself too, is that we have so much access to information, but you also have so many entities that are trying to give you the wrong information on purpose. And without enough critical thinking skills, it's very difficult to try to figure out what to know, what to look at.
But at least you have the opportunity. Back in the day, you didn't have the internet. Yeah, you just believed the shit people told you.
Yeah.
So again, I think you have to
listen
to the overall picture. I think you're focusing on specific points where some part of people, they didn't get any better, and that was also what I was thinking. We could be so much better. But overall, I think the internet and all the shit gave a lot of people progressed. And yeah, still some people are way backward. And I think that's also with this black and white thinking. This is again a question of black and white thinking. It's did the world become a better place or did it not? I think you never can separate progression and degression in a way. You get this advances in technology, but also in the same time it makes the world a shittier place, because now you have nuclear bombs. You could fuck up the whole world and with one fucking bomb. On the other hand, nuclear technology enabled power plants, and the energy consumption probably went way up when we started doing that. So there's always, I think with progression, always there's something along it that pushes it back, and people become more comfortable, and they don't have these big problems anymore. And I have to survive every day. I have to see how I can put food on the let's say in Germany. In other countries different, but a lot of people there don't have to struggle with that anymore. So they start shitting on other people, the refugees, for example. You go out 3 times a week to dinner. And then you complain about that you have to pay for people that are coming from like this war-torn country. They have shit. And you complain about paying for them to get like a warm meal and like stay in like this, basically like this motel of like 15 other people with them in like one room. I'm probably exaggerating, but whatever. But you're going out like 3 times a week and you don't appreciate that at all. And that's again, like, you could look at these people and be like, why are they getting more conservative? And like, they are bringing this back. Like, is the world becoming a better place? But on the other hand, you also look in them and see like, they can afford shit now. So basically it's better than looking back at a family like them like 50 years ago.
See, man, M sounded, you got M mad, man. Cause for a minute, I thought like, it sounded like he was talking to me. He's like, and you go out 3 times a week and do this. I was like,
yeah, you do.
I was like, relax. Like, I felt like personally attacked, man. Don't get, man. Who knew the immigration got M so worked up, man?
Yeah, because I find that so stupid. Like, some people, I don't get it. And that's one topic of that. Like, it used to be everything better. Like, it was just us here and nobody from outside. And I mean, like, motherfucker, you like go to a Turkish restaurant. You eat like this shit all the time. And then you complain that you take like people coming here are looking for like a better life. You shut the fuck up, man. Like, I'm fed up with you. Like, no, that makes me really angry because people just, they like complaining all the time.
Yeah, but back to the point. I mean, my thing is, okay, so I agree with you that, like, but could the world be getting good, better, becoming better in certain instances, but also worse in other instances, and so therefore it's very difficult to actually answer this question.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right, and also it's based on your personal experience, right? So my personal experience of how the world has been, in some ways I see it as worse. In some ways I can see, okay, it's better, right? Whereas other people will stress, okay, this is good, as opposed to, you know, because their life has been different, that, okay, this is good, because these issues that I care about have gotten better. And they don't necessarily look at all the issues, right? And so I feel like sometimes it could be subjective. Well, of course, whether we say the world is a better place or not. But when people try to scientifically like quantify these things and try to show how things have been better, it's like, well, yeah, but I think you're also leaving out a whole bunch of other things that would paint the world as maybe, so my final sort of conclusion is that I don't think that the world is getting better, and I don't necessarily think is getting worse. I think it's kind of,
it's evolving.
It's evolving, right? And evolution, like not just biological evolution, but just evolution in general doesn't necessarily mean it's going positive or negative. It just means it's changing. Just even in biology, evolution just means change.
Yeah.
Right? And so, things don't evolve to get better or worse. They just evolve. Right? So, well, they do evolve to get better or worse.
Yeah,
but, you know,
they evolve to adapt to their environment.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, but it's no moral thing that's assigned to it, right? Yeah. No moral value that's assigned to it.
Yeah.
So, I would kind of say like the world is just evolving, and I would like to say that in if I were to have to go on a side, I would say it's getting better. But I think it'll be a while, unfortunately, before we see. I think it's been getting better, but I think now it potentially could become much greater. But I think for that to happen, it's going to have to get a little worse, and then it's going to go back. So I think it's going to kind of go back and then go up, right? And I think we're kind of on that cusp of like going down and then going back up.
Yeah, like I think that overall, yeah, I think like just objectively, yeah, the world is becoming a better place or has become a better place, but we could do so much way, way, way better. And like you said, I think we're on a tipping point. If you like now you decide where we should go from now. With like you said, with the more conservative people being elected and like global warming and all the shit, now there could be a point where like we fuck everything up again. Or we decide like let's get our shit together, like talk this out, like bring the people the information, like the facts and everything, and show them like we need to do this to really stay at the level we are right now, at least at the level we are right now, if not becoming better. Yeah.
Right. And with that, let's kind of close. So basically, we just both agree that the world is evolving.
Yeah.
Some way, and it's a complicated issue, but for the sake of time, we're gonna switch to.
Let's go to a less philosophical one.
Yeah.
That was the prostitution.
Well, this could easily be pretty.
Well, yeah. You're right.
So, I don't know. I mean, I guess, this. I mean, maybe it's not as philosophical, but it's very controversial. It's much more controversial than is the world becoming a better place.
Yeah, of course.
So my favorite city that I've been to, and I've never lived there for an extended period of time, but just my favorite city that I've seen, that I know of, is Amsterdam. And as we all know that in the Netherlands, prostitution is legal, right? Or at least, it is legal, but at least, and it happens, right? And in Amsterdam specifically, I haven't been anywhere else in the Netherlands, but in Amsterdam specifically, you have the red light district. And it's basically this place where, shit happens. but you have like sort of these, what do you call it? Like you walk down the street and you have, like these buildings, and then in the windows you can see the different prostitutes, and they have them for, all different people, all different preferences, right? I think majority of them are assumed to be for men, which is a whole nother issue, right? But apparently there is a like red light district kind of thing for people who from the LGBT community.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I don't want to fuck it up, but I think it's called the blue light district or something like that. But apparently there is, or it could be a certain section in the red light district where they do cater to kind of all people's preferences.
Yeah.
But the ones that you hear about and the ones that I've seen mostly just walking around generally have been women that have been in, just displayed. And when you first go there, like it's like, for me, I'm a person where, again, I don't care what people do as long as it's not hurting other people. I think we talked about that with regarding like drugs. And so that's basically like kind of my big rules. I don't really give a shit what you're into as long as you and the people that you're doing it with or that you're doing around aren't negatively affected.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so, for example, if you're a woman or a man or whatever and you want to be a prostitute, and that's what you want to do as a job, because sex work is a job, and we have all this stigma against people who do sex work and they don't get benefits and stuff like that. I think that's fucked up. It is a job, right? It should get the same benefits as other jobs. And if that's what the job you want to do, then go ahead. That's what you want to fucking do, right? I don't care if that's what you want to do. But when I walked through the red light district specifically, I saw a lot of women who just in their face, they didn't look like they wanted to be there, right? And to me, that made me like very, very like it fucked me up a little bit, because it's like, if that's what you wanted, like it felt like that they were there because not necessarily that they were trafficked in there, but they felt like that maybe this is the best thing that they could do with themselves, and that they felt that by selling their body that's how they could make a living and everything like that, and that's how they were valued. And to me, that kind of fucked me, because if you like I said, if I saw like a whole bunch of women in there that really were smiling, and not like, like the fake smile, but like not like they'll smile like, obviously we know you're not happy.
Yeah.
Like if they were like generally happy and stuff like that, then okay, fine, because they're into it. Obviously the people who they call them Johns, but like the people who
Johns.
the people who want to engage with them, obviously they're into it, and so it's each party is happy, right? And that's kind of like where I first really started thinking, because at first I was like, oh, like prostitution, like okay, like if you want to do it, but then it's kind of like I wonder what proportion of people who are in prostitution because they want to be.
Yeah.
Or not because they were trafficked, and not because they feel like that this is their only option.
That's
right?
the big question. Yeah.
So for me, I would say that prostitution in itself is not morally wrong. Just like most things are just neutral, right? Like science is morally neutral, right? It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. Right? Same with religion, same with a lot of things. They're not necessarily good or bad, but they can be used for both. And so I would say like prostitution in a sense is also neutral. But I think if I had to guess, I would say that it's probably more negative than positive in the way it's been being applied. Right? And so that's what kind of like sort of fucks me up about the whole prostitution thing, because in theory, yes, it's fine. But in practice, if something tends to be really, really bad, then should it, because the thing is, you can't really like necessarily, if you criminalize it, it's still going to happen.
Yeah, then that's basically like the drugs again. It's
right,
probably gonna be even worse, because then you really know, like, these people, nobody looks out for them. They just have to probably make money for like their bosses, and they don't give a shit about like protection and all this shit. You have to regulate it again. Right,
and so, but to me, it's like when something's regulated and it's not being regulated enough, and it's not, then it's still a bad situation. So I mean, for me, I don't personally know anyone who is or was a prostitute. I've never.
No, me neither.
Met anyone, but I'd be very interested to see, like, to listen to their story and what their experiences from just other prostitutes that they know, like in practice, like how much. I mean, I've seen some documentaries, and of course those documentaries are going to stress the negative shit. But is there also some positives for it, right? Because if it's proven to be much worse for your psyche than good, then I mean, it's probably a bad thing to do, to practice, right?
Yeah, if you want to do it, then why wouldn't you be allowed? If it's again two consenting adults doing adult stuff. That's like
or more. It could be more than two consenting.
Yeah,
adults.
Well, whatever. Yeah.
Gee, open your mind. Damn.
Sorry, I didn't think about a prostitution orgy. But so. Two or more consenting adults doing adult stuff. Why wouldn't you be allowed? You're not hurting anybody. As long as you use protection, of course.
Well, if they want to use protection.
They have to. Like, that's one of the things I would regulate.
Some people don't like having sex with condoms.
Yeah, but I will say then, fuck you. You can go to wherever you want, but you're not having sex with me then. Goes for women and men. I would never be like, okay, then like, pay me another like $50. Maybe that's like the people that go in there and may not do this because they enjoy it or they want to do it. Because I read an article recently about like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old that is like in an escort service. That is not technically a prostitute, but still she sleeps with men. And she said like she likes to be a slut and just fuck strange people because that gives her like this kind of rush. Like meeting with someone, not knowing her, not knowing him, and then having sex with him and then never seeing him again. That's like basically also the concept of one night stand. It's like basically the same thing. And it gave her kind of a rush. And so she, like her friend, so it basically is like this recurring articles that go in like how two people see the same situations from two different viewpoints. And the one girl was so critical of like what she does, and she explaining her and all this stuff, and she said like she enjoys it, and the other girl couldn't understand that. And that's again like the social stigma that like prostitutes, they are sluts, like why would women do that, or even like why would men do that? But mostly,
right. So I mean, some people just really like you said, like, and this woman sounds like she just really likes having sex with random people,
like
which is perfectly fine, right? That's what you want to do. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, why shouldn't you be allowed to do that?
Again, I really won't understand why people care so much about who's fucking who.
Because,
like, I don't get it. Like, unless it's, like, for example, like, even like,
if I'm not getting anything, you're not allowed to get anything too.
Right, it's like, but even then, it's like, why do you give a, like, why do you care so much about what another person's doing with their dick or their vagina? Like, I don't care that much to be like, oh my gosh, like, of course people gossip and shit like that. You talk about it. It's not like I'm gonna like sit here and lose sleep because like, oh my god, these two were having sex. Like, if you don't, like, read a book or something, man. Or like fucking watch Netflix.
Because their life is boring, or they have like this so deeply religious that they have it's like a sin and blah, and I have to impose my views on other people because they have to have the same viewpoints and they have to be the same as because I am right. That's basically it. Why else would you? I get that you wouldn't want like people spraying STDs all over the place. Like, you have to regulate that shit and be like, you have to use condoms, otherwise, like, you can't do this. And maybe also, like, before girls start working, so if it's a legal business, before you have a sit down with them and you have a really thorough interview with them. Like, are you doing this on your free will? Why you want to do this? And blah, blah, blah. Are you, like, if somebody's offering more money, are you willing to sleep with them without protection? Even though you don't know the person. So, yeah, there have to be regulations instead, but then fuck off, then care about, like, important stuff and not when two people are fucking.
Right. And then, cause I mean, you know, because all the issues associated with it, like, I always wondered to myself, I was like, would I ever, like, pay for a prostitute? And, like, it's something, like, I thought about, like, a lot. Like, I thought of, like, would I not? Especially, you know, I was in Germany where it's legal.
Yeah.
And I was like, and, you know, when you, like, especially, like, when Frankfurt, as soon as you get off the fucking, out of the Hauptbahnhof, as soon as you get out of the train station, it's it's right there. Yeah. And so, I just was just thinking, I was like, damn, like, would I or would I not, or what the fuck? And then part of me was thinking, well, Ivan, is just because of society tells you that it's bad, and what if they're okay with it, blah, 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 like this is just some moral, religious shit. And then the other side of me was like, well, you don't know who's been trafficked or who wants to be there because they really want to be, like, and it was like this fucking moral conflict. And I was just like, and then it was like, what does this mean? Does this mean that you're objectifying women and that you're, you know, just using, like, and I was just like, oh my god, like, I was like, this shit is complicated. I was thinking of all this shit, and I was like, damn, I really don't fucking know. I mean, right now, I mean, it's no, right? But, I just
would think it's kind of strange. I just basically also like the social stigma again, but I would just think it's kind of strange. Just going there, paying, and then fucking, and never seeing, like, I don't know, I just, like, after that I would be like, wait, why did I do this?
Because someone has argued this point, right? That, like, and it's a stretch to, like, you know, no false equivalency, but someone has argued that, like, for example, we do this all the time, right? Where, let's just say heterosexual relationship, guy, girl, right? If the guy has more money, blah, blah, like, let's say if I'm a celebrity, I'm an entertainer, right? And I meet this girl, or this woman, because I don't like saying girl, because, you know, we don't like girls, we like women.
Yeah.
And so you meet this woman, and, you know, you like her, and she likes you, whatever like that, and then there's some interest, but you're also rich, so you don't know necessarily how much of it is you and how much, but it's fucking whatever. So, like, you buy her some stuff and whatever like that, and she fucks you. It's not like a, you know, it's not like explicit, like, oh, you fuck me, I'm gonna buy you this and take you on a trip. But, you know, like, there's stories of rappers flying women out, like, you meet them on the internet, you fly them out. Yes, this does happen to them. You fly them to, say, LA or whatever, and they come spend a weekend with you, and you assume that they have sex with you and stuff, and you treat it, but is like, and what I'm saying is, like, people have argued that that's another form of prostitution.
Yeah.
Right? And that's perfectly legal, right? But if you're, cause in a way, in a roundabout way, it's argued that you're still paying them in exchange for sexual, favors. right? And so, but it's just less explicit. It's not like, okay, you give me $50 and I'll suck your dick or something like that. It's more like, you know, we'll go to a nice restaurant, we'll be in a nice hotel, and I pay for all your trip and everything like that, and you just happen to fuck me when that happens.
Mm.
Right? And it kind of got me thinking of like this sort of, like, I don't know. So that's what kind of made me like really think like, damn, like, cause you could argue in a way it's maybe you could call it like soft prostitution, right? Like it's this like somewhat analogous thing to prostitution. And so, I mean, I've never done that cause I don't have any money. So, you know, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
The most anyone can get out of me is a fucking McDonald's Happy Meal or some shit like that. I'll buy you a pizza.
I'll buy you a pizza. How about that?
But other than that, I ain't got shit. So, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's I don't know. This is a very like weird subject for me, right? I feel like I really would want to like meet someone who is like familiar with that and see what they think, because maybe they can give me a perspective that I haven't thought about. And yeah, so I think it would be interesting. So
yeah, for sure.
Basically, we don't know whether it's immoral or not. But
should it be legal? Yeah. Do I think like what I think about is I'm torn about.
Most things, if they're legal, is better than trying to criminalize them, because it's going to happen anyway, and then that's how you get the black market and the dark web and a whole bunch of other
basically
shit.
Like we said again, if you don't hurt people, why should it be illegal? That's basically it.
Right, exactly. So if you don't hurt people, you know.
I think that's controversial enough, man. Let's close with the last one, which was, is relationship like romantic, friendship, whatever? Is this like contract? So you wanted to talk about this, so what do you actually mean by that? So let's go from what you mean by contract.
So not a contract in a sense of necessarily like you sign something, right? Because there can be verbal contracts and things like that. But a contract in the sense that, you know, if you look at it as a contract as an establishment of some type of bond, some type of union, right? It's filled with conditions, right? If this happens, if this happens, right? If not, it breaks down.
Yeah.
Right? So even in time, I think it was Hobbes with the social contract, right? Where we all kind of agree to, you know, not interfere with each other, get in each other's way, not kill each other, blah, blah. And then we all kind of live in somewhat of blissful state if we follow these rules of interaction, right? As far as relationships go, and I'll emphasize like romantic relationships, right? I would argue that they're very, very similar in their sort of structure. Because, for example, say for example, you know, I meet a woman and, you know, we start talking, blah, blah, blah. We end up, you know, liking each other and we're in a relationship, right? Maybe it's not explicitly stated, but if you're, for example, in a monogamous relationship, there are necessarily unsaid rules that you don't break, right? You don't fuck other people. You shouldn't really necessarily be flirting with other people, or, you know, things of this nature, right? And you don't necessarily like lay them out and say, don't do this, 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 because this will make, you know what I mean? You don't do all of that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like instilled in here. Don't mistreat me. That's basically like kind of in any relationship, right? Don't mistreat me. Don't, you know, even if you are not in a if you're in a polyamorous relationship, you could, you know, you would probably still not want them to like fuck your sister, or fuck your mom or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you probably would be rules against that. And you're like, oh well, we're polygamous, or we're in an open relationship.
You don't
like,
know
no,
what people are into.
No, but I'm saying like, but still, that wouldn't be the norm, right? You wouldn't say if I were to tell you that I was in an open relationship, you wouldn't suspect that I was fucking like my girlfriend's mom or something like that, or her cousin. Right?
Yeah.
So you would just, and you know what I mean? You would just assume that that's not going on. Right? And so what I would say is that once those if-then conditions are broken, then people break up in some cases.
Yeah.
Right? And so my thing is, I do view relationships, romantic and also friendships, as a certain contract. If you do a certain thing to me as a friend, I can't be friends with you anymore because I'm expecting certain things from you. Now, depending on the severity of it, right? Maybe you didn't know that this offended me in this way, right? Then I tell you, and now you know, and it's okay, cool. We get over that. But if you keep doing it, you know now that that's a clause, that's a stipulation in the contract that you should not do.
Yeah.
And you keep doing it, then we're not friends anymore, right?
Yeah.
You terminate that relationship, and there's which is a negative thing. Yeah. So I do view relationships as a contract. My thing is, I wonder, because sometimes I do tend to think that, like some people have said that I think I have a very weird way of thinking about shit. Is that a bad thing? That I think
that's the question. Is it
right?
a bad thing?
Right. Is it a bad thing if that's the way I think of it? Or do you think that people just don't want?
I think they don't want to see that. They want this romantic, especially in like romantic relationships, they will be like, it's all romantic and not look at it like from this basic perspective or like what it basically comes down to, this unromantic thing of being a contract. And I totally get where you're coming from. There are clauses in a relationship that resemble a contract, and if these are broken, one of the partners can say, sorry, this is not going to work out and we have to go our separate ways. And that's the same thing with a contract. If you don't deliver the stuff you said you're gonna do, which for example is, I'm not gonna cheat on you, or I'm not gonna whatever, do this and that we talked about that is important for a relationship to work out, then I totally get that this resembles a contract. That if one doesn't deliver, then sorry, the contract is not working out and you violated it, and now it's my right to say, sorry, this relationship is not going to work out. So if it comes down to, yes, I think people just hate thinking about that. They want to be all like, if you look at the movies and all the shit, what they want is relationships to be like this super romantic stuff where it's not something basic like a contract. You get what I mean?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, okay, like I get that people want to like be in this sort of like pretend world where where it is not what it is. But what I'm saying, like, my thing is from then on, right? So we understand like what it probably is. It's probably a contract, and we understand how people feel about it. But do you think that the way that they feel about it is in a long run sometimes negatively affects their relationship because they don't look at it from a realistic standpoint, right? If you base all your relationships on, like, say for example, movies. And
you're gonna be fucked.
Right, or basically you're comparing me to some motherfucker that's not even real, right? Then, you know, that's not a good way, because if you have this, you know, in movies and especially in even books and stuff have, you know, given us this romantic view of love and happy endings and shit like that. And so I really wonder whether the way we view relationship, if we viewed it as more of a contract, right? I think you could still have the love there.
Yeah.
Right? Because it doesn't prevent me from anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'd say, okay, I think this is a contract and blah, 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 doesn't mean that I love the girl less or care about her less or anything like that. It just means that I'm trying to be more realistic about this. Right? And you still could have feelings there. So I just wonder how much of our somewhat naive conceptions of what relationships are affecting how we move in them. right? And whether if we change it, would it actually make a lot of things better? I would argue in some cases it would.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, whenever you're more realistic about a situation, I think a lot of times it'll actually make you feel better. It'll make you uncomfortable. Right? But once you start dealing with reality, you'll realize that reality makes you uncomfortable a lot of times anyway.
That's just life.
Right. So you'll just get in a weird way, in a paradoxical way, comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll just kind of be used to that space where things are awkward or it's just like couples who don't even talk about sex. Right. It's like, what the fuck? Y'all fuck all the time. Y'all don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Or if, you know what I mean? It's just this, or it's like if you have sex with someone and, you know, they're like, then all of a sudden, I don't know, they take a shower and then they're like, oh, don't look at me. It's like, I just saw you naked. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. Right? It's not like a, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, oh, I wonder what she looks like under there. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not, to me, it's not like it's things like that sometimes baffle me with relationships and why they're like that. Right? Because to me, you should talk about, now again, I know you don't want to talk about everything. Well, you want to talk about everything regarding relationship and maybe not at that level, right? Because like, say for example, if I'm really pissed off at like my girlfriend or something like that, and I may come to you and say something, and the way that once you talk to me and once a couple other people talk to me, the way that I then relay it to her is in a form that I've thought about more. It's not just impulse. It's not purely emotional. It's something that I feel, but it's also something that I've thought about and I've had an opportunity to really digest and really think about. Because sometimes people are like, yo, Ivan, you wildin', like you doing too much. And I'm like, really? And it's explained to me how, right? And then I was like, okay, fine. Like, then you could go back to her and say, yeah, like I was kind of, you know, I was doing the wrong shit here, blah, 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 blah. But if I just went to her and just like, oh, fine. Like if anytime something happens, like start talking to me about it, then shit would be bad. Yeah. Right? Because you would have this unfiltered thing. And I don't think that's necessarily always a good thing because it's not, your first opinion or your first impulse is definitely not always your most mature one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I think a contract thing is good. And I think the more transparent you are about that, you know, I think it's a good thing because there are things that if they happen, we are no longer considered together. Like that's just what it is. Right. And of course things change, right? And another thing has another sort of thing with contracts. Contracts can be renegotiated. Yeah. Right? You could have, like, say, for example, if you're in a monogamous relationship.
What you have to do.
Right. Say you're in a monogamous relationship.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, say you're in a monogamous relationship at first and then you're open. Or say you're open and then you decide to close it.
Still not even that, but imagine, like, what points are important for a contract when you're, like, in your 20s and dating compared to, like, if you're married for 20 years or so. Totally different important points.
Right. And the fact that we think that things should just be static and not dynamic, like the contracts can be dynamic, right? Yeah. And so they always can be renegotiated and stuff like that. And so I think, I don't know, it helps me. But I could also have a fucked up mind, so I don't know. But I tend to think that it's fine. Like if a woman told me like, oh yeah, our relationship is just a contract, I'd be like, okay. I know. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't offend me. But well, I guess with that.
Yeah.
I'm tired of talking to you.
Okay. Like always enjoy talking with you, but if you think so.
Oh, shut up, man. Stop this bullshit.
What? I'm just telling the truth.
Sometimes you cut me off. You're like, oh, yeah, I don't have time today.
No, I never said that.
We had to, remember when you edited out I Love You? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I don't remember this. My client does not recall this event.
I definitely remember this shit. I definitely remember that because you had to say it at the end of the episode because I was upset. I made you hear it for a whole fucking week. Exactly. Now I'm bringing it up again because you know what? Now I'm mad again. Now it's making me upset that you edited your.
You started that shit with saying that you're sick of talking with me, and now suddenly you're trying to make me like
you're just deflecting, okay?
You're
just trying to
Ivan.
get rid of your responsibilities in the situation. I think that's really fucked up, okay?
Okay, sure.
You shouldn't do that, okay?
Okay, sure. Whatever. Now I'm sick of talking to you, so we're gonna close it with that one, and we're gonna see you the next time. Thank you for listening.